Well, it's 11 o'clock here on the nose, and wanted to take a quick moment for everybody who's joined. I wanted to take a quick moment and first of all, say thank you for being here. Second of all, we may have had a bit of a weird calendar issue and glitch, so it looks like the meeting actually started at 10. The intent was that it would start at 11. Love technology, but here we go, and we're gonna kick this webinar off and get things rolling. So first and foremost, want to thank you for jumping in today. I'm Scott Warner. I own Connecting Point. For many of you who are joined and are customers, I just want to thank you for spending some time, and thank you for the opportunity to serve your organizations. It's a huge privilege, and so we're going to try to do more of this. So this is something that we used to do a lot of, and kind of slowed it down, and we're going to kind of jump back into this stuff as we move forward. For those of you who are potential clients or just interested parties, thank you for spending some time with us, and we hope that this time gives you some insight into who we are and what we do, and how we try and bring value to our clients. So I have a guest here with me today. His name is Mark Perez, and we'll jump into Mark's bio in a second. Actually, okay. Bo, could you back the slide up just a little bit, one more? Because I'm going to introduce Mark in a second. But really quickly, just a quick brief on Connecting Point, just to gain some perspective again for those who aren't current clients. Our core business, our core tenant as an organization is to serve clients in the capacity of being an outsourced IT partner. Our job is to drive a partnership that brings just predictability and responsiveness in the IT environment that they run and drive their business through. Our job is to protect our clients from a cybersecurity perspective in a way that brings a model-driven kind of security-first approach to how their risk is contained related to their cybersecurity posture. And then at the end of the day, I mean, this dovetails into what we do and why, which is we have to engage with our clients from a consultative perspective and help them understand how IT folds into their business and what's happening on kind of the forefront of the IT landscape. So AI is one of those things, and this is why we decided to spin up a webinar today to kind of have a conversation. So thanks for spending some time. All right, let's jump forward, because I want to introduce my my friend and guest speaker today. So say hello, Mark.
Hello.
Mark Perez. This is just a quick blurb on Mark. Number one, he's awesome. Love Mark. He has a lot of history in the industry. I'm sure he can give you a little bit of color behind it, but Mark is a peer of ours, and he actually we're a part of a peer group of IT services companies. It's one of the largest, probably. It's an awesome peer community, and Mark actually started an MSP, ran an MSP for a long time, sold it, had a successful exit. Now he is our peer group facilitator, and that's how I've gotten to know Mark over the years. But because he didn't want to play golf every day or lift weights every day, he said, "I'm gonna start buy a new company, and we're gonna do some fun stuff." So I don't know, Mark, if you want to give a little more color to that related to what Ticomix is doing on the AI front. But and before you do that, quick housekeeping. I'm going to have a chat open. So as we go through this presentation, I'm going to have a chat open. And if you have questions or comments, leave them in the chat. I'll monitor the chat, and I'll try and fold questions in as we roll. And then we're going to have a Q&A session, probably the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And we'll kind of gather questions and fold them into the discussion. So please don't hesitate to drop something in the chat, and we'll go through it. Mark, let's give the folks a bit of background on you.
Okay, I mean, Scott, I think you covered it. I've been in IT since I don't know, for 25 years, and after selling my IT company, I started just messing around with AI. Now I own a software company focused on AI. So that's actually the next slide. It will just take 2 seconds on them. So we now own a company that's been around 25 years. It's been doing custom software development for all that time. And for the last few years, we've been shifting to doing a lot more AI work. So that's it. I don't want to spend any time on me. What I would love to do is let's go over our agenda. Here's the objective. I want to introduce you to specifically Copilot for Business, which is Microsoft's AI solution. But this webinar is going to be appropriate for if you use ChatGPT or Claude, or even more importantly, if you've never used it before and you're just interested in seeing what it can do. That's the whole objective of this webinar. So we're going to spend probably 3 or 4 minutes going through a couple slides just to kind of level set. And then I'm going to do as many demos as I can fit in before we have to break for Q&A. And one thing I learned a long time ago, I've been doing these webinars for about 1.5 years now. When we first started, we spent a lot of time talking about, actually, we spent the entire time talking about AI. And I've learned that if I can spend less time talking about it and more time showing it, it really connects and people get to understand what we can, the power of AI.
I like that. Makes sense.
Yep. So we're going to run through it. I got a couple slides and I want to jump right into the demos. As Scott mentioned, as we're doing those demos, if you have any questions or you need me to elaborate on something, or there's something that I said that was totally confusing, which will happen, just drop that in there and then Scott will interrupt me and help me make this the best use of your time. So Copilot. So some of you may have tried Copilot. Microsoft released this back in 23. It's Microsoft's AI solution, and it was awful, just awful. In fact, I'd say it was awful for a year, then it went to bad, and then it was okay, and it wasn't until probably 3 or 4 or 5, maybe 5 months ago, that it started to get good. And if I was advising a friend who had a business and he said, Mark, what should I choose to implement around AI? Should I choose ChatGPT, Claude? What should I choose? I would most likely at this point just say you should choose Copilot from Microsoft. It's a completely different product. So I need to, this slide's really important because some of you have used it before and swore it off forever. Unfortunately, this is a very typical thing. Scott would know this. Microsoft releases products way too early. They're usually not good, and then eventually they get good.
Good news is they've been consistent forever.
Yes.
We just keep expecting them to change, and it doesn't happen. But now I would echo your sentiment there that I was one of those who, when AI started proliferating and Copilot came out, I was all excited, and it literally did nothing, and it was just a time waste.
It also promised a lot, and it was expensive. It's more expensive. It was more expensive back then when it did less than it is now. So Copilot, I'm going to show it. The tool I'm going to use is Copilot during these demos. It is quite good. Here's just a slide that kind of stacks up where we are in the market right now. All the way to the right is Google. Google is a great solution for people who use Google for their Office suite. So if you're on Google, then you should use Google's product. They call it Gemini. Most businesses are not on Google. So then you really have the other 3 choices. You can either go with Microsoft. You can go with a company called OpenAI. They're the ones who released ChatGPT, and they were the first ones out. So that's probably the name that you know best. And then there's the other leader is Anthropic. And they've been in the news just recently because they released a model so powerful that the U.S. government told them to take it down. Well, they told them that no one outside of the United States could use it, which meant that they had to take it down. So Anthropic and OpenAI are the leaders. Microsoft has done something very interesting up to this point. They've said, we're not going to build our own AI. We're just going to use the best AI out there. So they actually end up you can use Copilot. When you use Copilot, you can choose to use OpenAI's ChatGPT. You can use Anthropic's Claude. Grok is owned by Elon Musk. That's the other option. So Microsoft has kind of come to the market and said, we're a little late. We're not going to try to build this ourselves. We're going to be agnostic and just provide you the best tools. The other advantage to Microsoft that actually I'll just discuss this one advantage and then we'll move on. Microsoft can build these AI chatbots around your data and make it secure so that it's protected. So if I ask the bot a question and it has access to data that I shouldn't have access to, but it does, it will actually respect that and not answer it. So I'll give you an example. I'll actually show it later in the demo. Let's say we create a bot around HR and you give it your HR folder. Well, if I'm the receptionist and I ask it a question around salaries, it'll pretend like it doesn't know and it'll say, I don't know. But if Scott's the owner and he has access typically to the salary folder in the HR repository, it will actually answer Scott. And that's something that I think really sets Microsoft apart, is their security layer that they've just built into the product.
You know, I love this slide, and I'll just double click on this slide real quickly, because I think everyone is dealing with this. What platform to use, what to bring,
right? And
again, I think the reality of this is this will continue to evolve quickly. So stuff like this is important. So since people joined the webinar to learn a little more about kind of the current state of things, we need to keep doing this because the current state of things will change. Like we got to be okay with that and familiar with it. So I guess the moral of the story is don't write a solution off yet, because tomorrow it may be different.
Yep. Yeah, very true. So if we jump into pricing, because that's important. Scott and I were talking about it before. It was more expensive when it first launched. I think back then it was like $30. Now it's $21, but they're running a special through this month. It's $18. So that's for the paid version of Copilot. The other thing that's changed since they released it is now they have something called Copilot Chat that is not licensed. It's free. And it allows you to just ask questions. And I'll show an example of the difference between the free version of Copilot and the paid $18, $21 version. But the neat part is at your organization, if you chose Copilot as your tool, you could give everyone Copilot Chat for free. And then you could choose to pay for the license for the users that need that level of features that only come with the paid version. So if you look at it from that perspective, it's even more economical than what it used to be, because back 2 years ago, everybody had to have a license, a $30 license, in order to use it. There's no minimums, and it's great. Now, beyond Copilot, some organizations have developers or analysts that need the more powerful tools, and that's where you could potentially end up using a mix. Maybe 90% of your employees use Copilot, and then you've got a couple people that need to use Anthropic or ChatGPT for very specialized skill set. A little bit on security. So from what we've seen, there are already people in your organization that are using AI. If you haven't provided them a tool, they're probably using the free version of AI. And the big difference between, and sorry, this is not to make it even more complicated. You have Microsoft's free version, and then you have ChatGPT and Anthropic. They have free versions. So I'm talking about everybody else besides Microsoft. The free versions, anything that you interact and you chat with it, any documents you give it, they have the right to use that however they want. Once you start paying for ChatGPT or Anthropic, then they say, we will not use your data. It's yours, and we won't use it for training, that kind of stuff. So the biggest issue, and Scott, I'm wondering if you're seeing this, but the biggest issue we're seeing is if a company does not embrace AI and provide it, then employees start using the free version, and then they start uploading sensitive data into it, and then I don't know what ends up happening after that.
No, I think that again, this is one of the reasons why we wanted to have this conversation. We've actually started seeing from a support desk standpoint, users calling in and saying, "Hey, I'd like to connect my personal AI to my Microsoft 365 to get some benefits of intelligence and utilization of my information and make my life easier." I mean, and that's just wrought with risk. And so, our job as a partner is to help identify, a strategy. And again, there's a lot that's going to be that will happen in AI and how IT providers take on a role of partnering and walking alongside folks in their AI journey. Again, I don't think that's as critically important right now as it is saying you need to understand what your strategy is. We can help curate that conversation. And then, there's some policy and procedure that would be good to put in place around kind of acceptable use. And there's also some things we can do as a company to block certain, large language models that you don't want people to use. So there's ways to protect the organization from some of that free AI and that shadow AI. So again, if that's something that you're curious about, or again, our job is to have that conversation proactively and start moving clients down that path. But again, having a corporate strategy is critical. Critical. So
Perfect. I got one more slide, and then we'll jump into the demos. So let's talk about quick wins versus big wins. A quick win around AI is just using it to boost your personal productivity, and that's the demos I'm going to show today. That's where you just get, it's the same work that you do, but you're doing it faster. Those are the real quick wins that are available to everyone right now. It just requires awareness and training. And then there are the big ones where you're actually doing some sort of automation around an entire process or department. Those could be fantastic. I've seen reports recently where vast majority of those fail for a variety of reasons. That's something that we do at our companies. We end up building out these automations for large departments or processes, really complicated. There has to be a really good business case to do it. But on the personal productivity, that's just a low-hanging fruit. And hopefully when you see the demos, you go, "Oh, I could use it in my workflow. I could leverage it." Yeah, so let's jump into the demos. Live demos. All right. So I'm going to bring up Copilot here.
by the way, while you're bringing that up, I think I'd make one more comment, which is I think I think we all have a tendency to try to jump to the big wins first. I think it's easy to say, "Oh man, what is this agentic technology that allows me to have this robust personal assistant, or I have these 6 processes I want to automate." And I think that's good, and I think you can get there, but I think there's also there's stepping stones to get into it to become fluent in it, and make sure that your processes of how you're going to use the technology are stair-stepped into more advanced functionality. So it's easy to try and get there fast, but like anything in life, doesn't necessarily work as you'd assume.
No, I mean, if you jump that step of building your own personal awareness and being able to use it for your own personal benefit, if you just jump to, "I'm going to kick off a $100,000 project for my company," that is highly risky and not a good idea. So that's why this entire demo and this webinar is about showing you how you can use it in your own personal work. And these are all work related. I think all my demos are, all work related. So we're going to jump into probably one of the easiest things or one of the most frequent things that people use AI for these days is just to write. So write marketing, copy, or I use it a ton for emails, both because it's faster, but it also just writes better emails. I've struggled my entire life understanding when to write THERE or THEIR. I also struggle with my hand and left hand. So like I just have a lot of struggles, and I've found that AI is a fantastic partner and allows me to generate great emails. So sometimes I'm going to just copy and paste. So like this one's a longer one. I'm just going to copy and paste it. But actually, before I get started, if you haven't seen Copilot, this is what it looks like. We're going to start here by typing in our prompt. We can also dictate it, or we can go into something called voice chat, where you're just talking back and forth. That's really hard to demo, so I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to show you how to dictate. But on this first example, we're going to ask it to help us write an email. So, help me write an email to a client. We've asked them a couple times for some files and approvals that we need from them, but we still don't have everything. At this point, our team is blocked and the project can't really move forward. I want this email to be friendly and professional, but also pretty clear that if we don't get everything by Friday, we're going to have to put the project on hold. So this happens a lot in my world where I have to send these types of emails. And I tell you, in the past, I would write it and then I would show it to my wife. I would show it to my business partner. I would show it to a bunch of people, and they would fix all the grammatical stuff. But they would also tell me, hey, you sound a little harsh or whatever. And now I just use AI, and I'll go ahead and kick this off. So it's starting to write it. The other neat part about this is the more you use AI, the more it learns what you want, right? So this is tailored based on my previous chats. So it writes a pretty good email. Now, what I want to show you is that AI it's a conversation, right? So I'm going to do a lot of examples where I move it forward a little bit. I don't just accept what it gives me in the first draft. So for example, let's say I look at this email and I go, it's pretty good. I could just copy and paste this into Outlook and edit it. But maybe I just want to give it some feedback. So what I write here, I said, and I'll use my dictation at this point. This client can be somewhat of a hothead. How do you think they're going to react to this email? So now I'm going to kind of ask AI for a little bit of feedback. So let's see what it comes up with. Given that you said that the email will likely land as a firm, but I'm sorry, given what you said about them, this email will likely land as firm and a bit triggering. So that's not good. And it gives me a little bit of feedback. It tells me how I can reduce it. Here's some tweaks that I could do. So then I go, and then I ask it a question like, would they potentially respond better if I offer to help in any way possible? Yes, they will. Okay, so then I'm going to go, great. Give me an updated draft. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Let's see, did it do it? No. So now it's taking some of that feedback and it gives me an updated draft where in somewhere, if it would help, we're happy to jump on a quick call to walk through what's still needed to assist. Our goal is to keep everything moving forward. So Scott, I imagine this is how you use AI too. You start with like your first prompt. It's never going to be, well, not never. Usually it's not perfect, but then you go back and forth and you get it to the point where you're happy, and then you copy and then maybe do your final edits.
Yeah, and I think it's funny. I catch myself telling AI this a lot. Shorter, make it shorter. And help me be clear. And I think a lot of times that's helpful. Just you can be very clear about what you want, and I like that.
You can also be silly. This is a really dumb example, but I just thought of it, and I think this will prove the point. It will do just about anything you ask it. So for example, I'm going to give it this direction. I just remembered that this prospect really loves cats. I think if I include a poem about cats, this will go over much better. Insert a short poem about felines. All right, feelings, no, about cats. I don't know how to spell felines. Okay. So I'm sure it's going to include a nice little poem about cats. Here it is. And so it's, the objective of that is just to show you how willing it is to do just about anything. If I asked it to give it to me in Spanish or just about anything, make it shorter, make it longer, like Scott said, it's more than happy to do that for us.
So I have I have a quick question while you're going through this, because this is something, again, this is Copilot.
Yeah.
Are you right now, are you using, use, obviously you can use ChatGPT or Claude or, inside of Copilot. What are you using right now?
So great question. In the top of Copilot, you can choose your model. About a year and a half ago, it was really important to know all about the models and to think through it and go, okay, this is a complicated request. I'm going to use this model. This one's easy, so I'm going to use this model because it's faster. I argue that most people should leave it on auto. But if you want to go in here, you can go in and you can choose a quick response. You can choose think deeper, or you can go into the exact model. So here is Anthropic's Opus. This is ChatGPT. You can choose individual ones. The neat thing that's happened in the last year is they've added essentially an automatic router. So when I ask it a question that requires a lot of deep thinking, it will automatically just choose think deeper, or it'll choose a better model. If I ask it, what color is the sky, it'll just choose a simple model and reply very quickly to me. So it's important. It's less important these days to know about the models, which just makes the whole experience a lot easier.
So last layer on that question. So if you're using, we had an attendee ask if if you use the paid version of Copilot, and if you select Claude as the platform to use, does it use the Claude for Work paid version or the free Claude account? So obviously concern is data privacy.
Yeah, great question. So Opus, it'll use the paid version of all these models. So the only way when you're using Copilot, there's no real way to use it without your data being protected. And that's Microsoft's did that right from the beginning. Even when the product was awful 2 years ago, it still protected your data, and they've continued that. So good question. It's a paid version. So
Thanks.
Before we move on, I just want to point out that at the end of this, it kind of gives you these suggestions, like, do you want to make the cat poem more playful? Add a closing line linking the poem to the project. That's a good one. Suggest a subject line that hints at the cat poem. So it's recognizing that this cat poem thing is a little odd, and it's like let's link it back somehow, and it gives suggestions, and we'll see those, and I'll highlight them as we work through a couple other examples. So let me go ahead and hit new chat. So the next thing I want to look at is, I imagine we all have been part of a meeting where somebody's taking AI notes, or we're taking AI notes, and we'll get an email like this afterwards with the meeting recap, takeaways, decisions, and action items. So that's really cool tech. That's been around for a while now. What I want to show is what I often do is, after a meeting like that, let's say it's a sales meeting, and I've recorded it, I've transcribed it, I get the meeting notes. I typically, after a sales meeting, I send a sales follow-up. And I used to hand type them. Again, take 15, 20 minutes for me to do that. Now what I'll do is I'll just drop the email. So this is the email that I opened up. Let me see, this one here. I'm just dragging it from my Outlook and I'm dropping it into here. And then I'll say something like this. I'll say, these are the notes from my meeting. Draft a follow-up email to Doug, thanking him for his time, recapping the 3 main points, and proposing next steps. Include a suggested agenda for our call. And this is where, you could just have a library or a page where you have a lot of these prompts that you use a lot. This is one that I use quite a bit. So we'll give it a second. It'll open up the email, it'll read the email, and then it will, using the notes in the email and based on what I told it to say, it will create a draft. So from our discussion, here are some key challenges. It took that from the meeting notes. These are the proposed next steps. Here's our agenda. The other thing you'll start to notice is that when Microsoft, it'll cite its work. So this sentence, if I look at this is the email I gave it. So the source it used was my own email. And this is really important because not a lot of times, it happens, it's actually less now than it did before. But AI can, in its attempt to just give you an answer and to be pleasing to you, it can lie to you. It's called AI hallucinations. If you hear anybody talking about hallucinations, that's just a fancy word of saying AI lies to you. So there, it gave me a good draft. It looks good. Maybe I hit this copy button and I put it into Outlook and I'm off. Or maybe I come back and say, this prospect shared that the initial pricing may be too high. Add a paragraph about how we're willing to work with them to find an option that works better for their budget. So now it's going to take that note, it's going to take previous draft, and it's going to weave in that request. Here, we also heard your concern around the initial pricing. We are flexible in how we approach this. So it put it in, and at this point, I may look at this and go, perfect, let me send it. Or to Scott's point, maybe I say, this is way too long, make it shorter. I could have also told it, make it longer. I don't know why anybody would do that, but you could.
And what I think is interesting too is just the amount of just talking, right? So instead of typing into AI, like how much we're not talking at it. You've talked to me about some of the dictation software that you use, but there's a ton of them out there. There's some integrated stuff into Windows, but super helpful.
And this dictation is just built into Copilot. So when you get Copilot, it wasn't before, it is now. You could just do dictation. I almost never type anymore with AI. I'm usually dictating because I can speak faster than I can type, and I can be more verbose in my feedback to it. And that brings up another point, which is a term called context. So providing context to AI is really helpful, giving it background and enough information to produce a good response for you. And I have just found for me personally.
And I apologize to interrupt, but so I love that. I want to double click on that a second. So by the way, this is just chat, right? This is Copilot chat, right? Yep. So this is the free version of Copilot. And when someone is going to create context files and documentations, where are they going to put that, Mark? Like, where's a good place to create context, and how and where do you store it? Like, is there a good place for me to say, hey, I'm going to talk about, who I am and what I want, and, this is how I like to curate my emails, and this is my role. Like, where would you do that?
So you have two options. So what Scott's talking about is, how do you get ChatGPT to know you better and know what you want? There's two options, and you should use both of them. One of them is, the more you use it, the more it learns about you, and the more it just remembers important things. Like if you, it can remember the names of your spouse and her birthday, that kind of stuff, by just you using it. Or in Copilot, and all these tools have this, they're in different spots, but if you go to chat settings and you go to personalization, you can do custom instructions. So if I look at ours, one of the things I always tell AI is never ever use M dashes and replace them with periods or commas. So I have a bunch of custom instructions in here that are things that I put in to make it better. And by the way, for anybody that's like, what's an M dash? I didn't even know that existed until AI started doing it, but it's like a double, I don't even know how to do it. It's like a double dash. But if you ever get an email or you see a document where you have a dash that's twice as long, that is almost certainly written by AI. Although on my last webinar, somebody spoke up and said, I use them all the time. So I didn't know people use M dashes. I didn't. Scott, did you even know what an M dash was?
Yeah, it happens if you hit space dash space and start typing again. And I use them sometimes, but yes.
Okay. So I've never used that before, but AI loves to use it. So part of my custom instructions, because I use it so much to write, I don't want to give away that I'm cheating by using AI. So I tell it not to sound like AI. And one of the things I tell it to do is Don't use M dashes, don't use fancy words, don't use long sentences. That would go in your custom instructions, but also the more you use it, the more it learns about you when you do that. So,
Awesome.
okay, so what did we okay, this was taking meeting notes and then just cutting the amount of time it takes for you to do good follow-up. You could also, I could say, create the agenda for my next meeting with this client. And it'll create the agenda. So you could have a meeting notes turn into a email follow-up, turn into an agenda, here follow-up call with Doug and team, and it's pulling that information from the last meeting notes. And hopefully you can see how this could really cut down how much time you spend on these types of tasks. I'm going to go ahead and start another one.
Now, and I'll stop here real fast. And I think this is where, again, let's say you said, I want Copilot to then create the meeting invite for me and apply it on calendars and send it out to the appropriate people. I think that's, to me, where in the past Copilot would struggle. It's starting to get to the point where it can do some of that stuff depending on permissions that you give it. But I think that's still an area, in my opinion, where I see some challenges of like, hey, create this invite for me and invite the necessary people. So taking it that next step sometimes can be a bit, I don't want to say problematic, but can be a little quirky. What's your experience?
It sometimes works and it sometimes doesn't. When it works, I'm really happy. When it doesn't, I usually just start a new chat or I ask it again. I can usually get it to work on something that I'm trying to do that saves me time. Yeah. But a lot, like what you described, create a calendar invite or search through my calendar, that then now requires the paid license. Everything I've shown up to this point, you can get, if you have Microsoft 365, Office 365, if you have that, you can get Copilot Chat for free. And nothing I've shown up to this point, and I have one more demo before I show you what it looks like if you have the paid license. But up to this point, everything is available from Microsoft as part of your Microsoft 365 subscription, and nothing is going to cost you or require you to get a paid license. But let me jump into one more example, one that has been something that I've taken advantage of recently. So I've been in business for a long time. I had a rule that I started about 20 years ago, which is that I do not spend time responding to RFPs unless I helped to draft the RFP. That's the only time I've ever felt like it was a good use of time. Typically, you get an RFP, it's 40 pages long, and then you have to produce a book as a response. 2 months ago, I got an RFP, and I looked at it, and I said, you know what? Let me try using AI and see if it will work. So it replied. I got a proposal. I submitted it. We won the RFP. And now I'm all about RFPs. So if you have an RFP that you want to send me, give me an hour and I'll respond with a great proposal. But I want to show you what I did. So I'm going to pull over. So let's say you get an RFP from a client. And these are just samples, right? So, and I had AI create this. So here's a fictitious request for proposal. They want us to provide company background, overview, the goals. Actually, no, this is the company background of the RFP. But then they list a bunch of things that we have to do. They have timelines and, pretty typical RFP. And then I'm going to use a proposal that, let's say you have 4 or 5 proposals that you've used over the years. So what I typically do now is I'll drop in the sample RFP. So I'm just dropping the file. And then I'll grab a bunch of our proposals that I think are related. So that's what I've done here. I got the sample RFP, and then I have an old proposal. And I'll come in and I'll just tell AI something like this. So I provided you 2 documents, a new RFP from a prospective client and a previous proposal we wrote for a similar project. And I could have given it 4 or 5. The more you give it, the better. That's giving it the context. So then I say, using the previous proposal as a model, create for me a draft response. So we'll go ahead and submit that. What it'll do is it'll read through the, boy, that was fast. It'll read through the RFP, and then it'll try to answer it based on what it knows about me, but also the proposal I just gave it. So in this example, I pretended that I am North Star Commercial Services, and this is my response to their RFP. Again, it's citing where it's grabbing this stuff from. So it grabbed it from the one sample, or this is from the RFP. Let's see what else we got here. So we go through, pretty good. It already identified gaps that were missing, which is really helpful. My next prompt could be something like this. What are 3 questions, if I answered, would allow you to improve on this first draft? So it's going to look at those gaps, and based on what the RFP requests, it's going to say, what is your desired architecture? How do you want to position commercially? And what proof points do you want to lead with? So great. And then I could go through and and this is what I did 2 months ago when I responded to the RFP. I gave it that. I gave it a bunch of proposals that we had written over the last few years. And I think it took me about 2 hours to produce one of the best proposals I've ever written. And it was all branded to our brands and the company. And like I said, I submitted it and we got lucky and we won. So that was really neat. So Scott, have you tried doing anything like that for sales or producing proposals?
Yeah, and I think the reality of all this is if you don't give it enough framework, like I think it's a big mistake. Again, this is kind of my posture on AI. It's a big mistake if you don't give the vast majority of your work, like your context and your framework, because then it makes it long and voluminous and it sounds too complex. I think they're, especially related to stuff like this, it's very important to say, here's where I want injection from AI, and here's where I want you to analyze data well. And I think those are things that AI does great. Now, quick side question here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's pertinent to, as you, like, for example, you're trying to build an RFP and you're having AI do this for you. One of the things that we're seeing a lot of as large language models just get better or change. Let's say I've been using ChatGPT forever, and now I go, I want to use Copilot for this. But ChatGPT knows everything about me. But now I go into Copilot, I'm like, oh shoot, like I don't have anything built into this. So like, is there a good way to take, and maybe you put this in your hip pocket and answer it a little further down the road, Mark, but like, is there a way to take everything that I've built into, let's say my personal ChatGPT, and bring it over to be able to give that context and history to Copilot?
I'm going to answer that by showing you what you do when you don't know something about AI, and that is to ask AI. So let's find out. I'm switching from ChatGPT to Copilot, and I want to know, is there a way for me to export the personal data that ChatGPT knows about me so that Copilot can be familiar with who I am and my preferences? What do you recommend that I do in this situation? So hopefully it'll answer it the right way. The answer is going to likely be there is no export, because these companies don't necessarily want you to transfer your data out. Let's see what you can export. So you can't export. You can go to, yeah, that's not going to be helpful. So what else does it say? Important limitation, right? What actually works? Perfect. Okay. So it said you could export all your data, but then you get all these files, and that's not helpful. This is what's helpful. I would go back to ChatGPT, and I would give it a prompt, and I would get it to talk about me. So let's see, pull feed into Copilot, optional, what to do. I don't want to spend time reading through that, but what it should produce is a prompt. Generate my person. How do I extract preference from my ChatGPT export? It's funny, these AI tools answer it differently. But the answer is, you would go in and I would do something like this. I would say, Great. Now create for me a prompt that I can type into ChatGPT to extract all of this personal information that it knows about me, so I can give it to you.
Hmm.
ChatGPT. Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
so you can basically you don't export and import into Copilot. You basically just have whatever LLM you're using kind of distill it down so that you can then bring it over in sort of a prompt and some context.
Yeah, because these tools do not want to make it easy for you to swap from or switch from one to the other. So there is no easy button as far as I am aware of. But you can, AI will gladly do this for you. They're not going to say, oh, you're trying to leave me. I'm not going to answer that question. So you would put this in there. I want to migrate my working style and personal context to another AI system based on everything you know about me. Summarize this, and it kind of gives like a template. And then if you type this into ChatGPT, it would say, you're Mark Perez, and you own these companies, and you do this, and you like to not use M dashes and a bunch of other stuff. Hopefully, you'll remember my wife's birthday and transfer that too. So that's extremely helpful. So that's the best way to migrate from one to the other.
Makes sense. Thank you and because I bring it up because again, if you start doing a lot of like again RFP work and proposals, and you get they start building out your structure how you do this, then all of a sudden you go, wow, Copilot has made tons of improvement. Let's start using that. I think we're going to deal with that a lot more as we move forward.
Yes, I've switched 4 or 5 times in the last 2 years. No, that's an exaggeration. I've switched 3 times in the last 2 years. And I hope not to do it again, but I probably will, because me personally, I want to be on the cutting edge. So I keep on switching. As I said at the beginning of this, if my buddy was starting to use AI and he wanted my advice on what should I do, it's just hard to bet against Microsoft. And I assume that this product will continue to get better and will eventually be so good and so integrated into the Office platform that it won't be beat. And it'll be the best solution for most people out there. So,
That's good.
So let me just spend a few minutes and show you the difference between like having a paid license and a non-paid. So up to this point, we've been giving it documents and it's been able to help us. This here, turn off Work IQ and turn it on. By default, it's on, but it didn't use it because none thing I asked required it. But this Work IQ is all it's my email, it's my SharePoint, it's my OneDrive. That's what they call it. They call it Work IQ. They just renamed it recently. So I'm going to turn that off because I want to show an example. With it turned off, this would mimic if I wasn't paying for a license, if I was just using ChatGPT free. If I said, what does the rest of my week look like with it turned off? It should be like, I don't know, because I don't have access to your, I can't see your calendar. Okay, so let me just start a new chat. If I leave it on and I ask that same question, what it will actually do now is it'll pull up and it'll check my Outlook, and it should give me my entire week. This takes a little bit longer, but not too much longer. So Tuesday morning, it says, you're in a heavy block right now because I've got all these webinars and I got meetings coming up. Said something when you do demos, you try to do these ahead of time. There was something interesting that came up this morning. Today's overloaded and overlapping. Wednesday's mostly open except for a doctor appointment. Oh, that's good. Thursday's your cleanest work day, and Friday has some open loops. I gotta look into that. And then it gives suggestions. Help me rebalance today's meetings, or summarize key decisions needed this week, or list of meetings that need RSVP confirmation. Did I have? No, that's all I want to show on that. So I could do. Let's see. Do I have any? I don't know if I have meetings with Sebastian. Meetings with Sebastian this week. I'm going off script here. Yes, I do have 4 meetings with them. Okay. And here, so I have the webinar meetings that we got right now. If I click on this, it will actually open up Oh, I don't want to join that. Oops. Shouldn't have done that. It'll actually exit me out of this meeting. But if I click on these, they'll take me to the document. So it'll take me into my calendar and it'll show me the exact document or the entry. And that's the cool thing with Work IQ is that it will like pull those up. And I want to show one just to drill in this point. If I do one more example on Work IQ. So how about this? If I said, find our 2026 branding guide, and we have that in SharePoint, and then list of changes I have to make to this proposal. If I take back that proposal from before, sample proposal, let me make sure I grab the one, yep. So I'm grabbing that ugly, generic looking proposal, and I'm saying, does this fit our brand? So what it's going to have to do is going to have to look in SharePoint, find the branding guide, and then compare the proposal I just gave it to the branding guide. So it's doing a search in SharePoint. Good, it found it. And now it's going to go through and tell me how this proposal is wrong and all the areas where it's wrong. And for the sake of time, I've gone through that over here. It came through and it told me where it was wrong. I then told it, okay, well, fix it. And I said, give me a Word document where the proposal is fixed. So as a reminder, before, it looked like this, just generic. I gave it my branding guide, which it found on SharePoint. And then I told it to go ahead and use the branding guide and fix the proposal. So if we open it, okay, let me try again. Imagine it looks amazing because it looks so much more like our, it's still loading. That's funny. Okay, there we go. So this, it didn't change any of the copy. It just made the document consistent and compliant with the branding guide. So that's super easy to do. You could also have maybe an SOP for proposals that listed out rules. Every proposal needs X, Y, and Z. And maybe you have everybody in your sales team, before they're allowed to push out a proposal to a client, they have to run it through a bot that checks it against your sales proposal standard operating procedure and doesn't allow proposals that don't comply to go out. Okay, last one, and then we'll see if there's any questions. Over here, these are specific agents. So I've been showing you chat. I showed you chat mostly without the paid license. Then I showed you when you have the paid license, it'll start accessing your email, your SharePoint, your files in OneDrive. But you can also create agents. And agents are specific bots that you can like deploy for yourself or for your entire company. So the example I'm going to show here, we call it People Pulse. And People Pulse has access to our HR folder. So I can come in here and ask it, let's see, after 3 years, how many PTO days do I get off? And what it's going to do is it's going to go look through all the documents that we have in our HR folder. It's going to find our employee handbook, and hopefully it's going to answer correctly based on what it found in the document. And we ended up deploying this across the board. So here we go, pay time off after 3 years, and it gives me the table. So after 4 years, we get 18 days. And then the neat part is, if I click on this link, it actually opens up, I'll bring it over, our benefit summary. This was in our SharePoint. So now I can look at it in more detail if I want. Were there any other links? Not in this one. But these bots, this is something that Scott and his team could do relatively easy for you guys, is to just, you start off with an HR bot. You put it in here. You can put it into Microsoft Teams. We have it in our Microsoft Teams as well. And imagine the amount of time it saves, not only from the HR department, but employees don't have to pull up a 100-page employee handbook to find an answer to a question.
But again, like I think this is something where, like, ask it. Say, give me a step-by-step process to set that up. Like that is a perfect use case to say, I want to use this. How do I do this? Teach me like I've never used AI before. Give me the step-by-step process to get this set up.
That's a good point. You could go in and ask AI just to give you the steps to do this. It's not a lot of work. And you could, so, we have one for sales that looks up customer information. You can create one for operations if it has access to all your SOPs. But just imagine being able to create these bots that instead of making somebody go find the document, one of 1,000 documents, and then go and open up and do a Control F to find the word PTO and eventually get to the data, you can just ask it these questions. So
we have 5 minutes left here.
Yeah.
I actually have one quick clarifying question. So can you walk through the difference between using like an agent versus like, hey, I just want to build an automated workflow, or have Copilot build me an automated workflow to summarize my my unread Teams message every morning, and like what's the difference here versus quick workflow versus agent?
Yeah, good question. So a quick workflow, like Scott said, summarizing what you could set it up for at 7 in the morning. It summarizes all your meetings for the day. It also looks up maybe potentially previous emails with those people, and it kind of creates that context. So that's something you could do personally for yourself. These bots over here are typically created for the entire organization or department. So you create an HR bot, and then you then deploy to anyone in the company. You put it into Microsoft Teams. So it's a difference between building something for your own personal productivity and then building something that the entire organization can benefit from.
Makes sense. So the workflows, and where in Copilot here would you do like a workflow creation versus doing a bot?
So it's beyond the scope of this webinar, but scheduled prompts.
Yep.
is what you're looking for, and those would be prompts that you set a schedule, and for example, the prompt would be summarize my meetings for the day and pull any relevant context or content that would help me prepare for them, and then you would set that up as a scheduled prompt, or you would go in here and create agents. And again, you click here, create agent, and it walks you through creating the agent, or you could work with somebody like Scott to do that for your organization if it's too complicated.
So we're getting pretty close to time,
Yep.
And I want to be respectful of starting on time and ending on time. First and foremost, I really appreciate you spending time with us, Mark, to go through this. My hope in this was it just created a dialogue, right? So if you're kind of new into this and this has given you value, like, oh yeah, I should use this or try this, great. If you've been a personal ChatGPT user and you've never tested Copilot or haven't in a long time, do it. Again, I love the concept that it's free. Chat's free with Microsoft 365 license. Like that is a huge change and benefit. And from a high level, if you're a Connecting Point client and want to talk to us in some more depth about that, happy to help you wade through that. If you are not, I think this is a great opportunity and example of how we can bring value, and then honestly securing environments to make sure this is something that's feasible and reasonable, and it's just a big part of where we're going. But yeah, I wanted to thank everyone for their time, and Mark, thank you for anyone who Mark's new to everybody. He's a go-giver, and really appreciate his willingness to do this for us. What I might do, Mark, is I might take a little sample survey after this is done, and if there's other things in specificity that people want to go through or topics, maybe we can spin another one of these up in a period of time, and we'll be a little more specific and drill further in. But for what it is today, I thought this was awesome, and hopefully it provided some value for the group. So Last piece of housekeeping here. We are going to record this. The session was recorded, so we're going to send it out to everybody who signed up. So if you want to send it to folks, or if you want to hold it for later, we'll send it out. And we really appreciate your time. So Mark, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time and your willingness to give. And it's exciting stuff. So until next time, we hope everyone enjoys the journey, and let us know how we can add value to what you're doing. But again, I guess we'll let everyone go with that and stay after it.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, all. Take care.